right now. So we're all ready to start. And this is a follow-up to a session that we had probably well over a month ago, and we were scheduled to have the follow-up when the big Zoom blackout happened across the world, and we couldn't get online. And so this is a great opportunity for me again to introduce the co-presenters for today, Laura Hansen and Susan Rappel, and both are from Chill, Sacramento. Why Chill Sacramento? Oh, I remember. It's because of a foundation that was sponsoring you, right?
Chill Center Inc. or DBA Chill Sacramento is the nonprofit that the Compassion Ambassador program sits inside.
Okay, great. Well, as you all know, the 2 volumes that have been published already, and hopefully you've all said that you've at least skimmed them, if not internalized them. So we're going to build on the very first presentation. The only other thing that I'd like to interject at this point is that a week ago, we offered on the charter something called Building Community, and we did it every single day, starting at 5 a.m. on the first day, so that we would reach India and Indonesia, and we kept changing the time and ended so that we could reach Australia and New Zealand. And it was just an opportunity to find out what people were thinking about building community in their local area of the world. And it really set the groundwork for us to put together 2 courses. They're the same course, but they're going to be offered at different time zones. And so you can check out on the homepage of the website. But I believe one will be on May 20th, and then it will be followed by May 27th, the second one, and that's the morning one. And then there's an afternoon session so that we can reach Australia and Japan and New Zealand, but it's still perfect time for people in the States as well. It's 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So it's a time for people to come together. And if they haven't already started a compassionate community, we're going to go through systematically the toolkit of building a compassionate community. And then we will then work individually with people who want to pursue the adventure further, and then move them into what you've already experienced as seasoned people in building community. So just wanted to alert you to that. And I will now turn it over to Laura and Susan.
Thank you, Marilyn. And our co-presenter, Melinda, will be here shortly. So we'll watch for her. So this is dig in a little bit more. What questions do you have, or what topics you'd like to discuss in more depth? So it's a more of a, as if we were in a room, we would just be sitting around in comfortable chairs and having a conversation. So let's do that. And it looks like most of you are in comfortable chairs from what I can tell.
Especially Regina.
Ah, yes. So what's been on your mind since we met last time? And what would you like to go in more detail about? And I think maybe what might be good is for, and I'll put the order in the chat, is to share, for each of you to share, what do you want to get out of this time together? What are you hoping for? So let me put the order in the chat so we reduce the anxiety, except for the first person. Okay. All right, I think so. It's Chuck, Joanne, is it Regina?
Mhm.
Okay, and Nancy. Okay. So starting with Chuck, if you don't mind, what are you hoping to gain? What are your thoughts about what you'd like to have by the end of this time?
Well, first of all, I want to say how inspired I was last time you presented. I'd have to go back to my notes to get all of the things that you had suggested, what you were doing in your own community. On a 1 to 10 scale, you're like a 10, and on a community building thing, I'm like maybe a 2 or a 3. And what I'm doing right now, I have a project called Project 250, which I'm trying to create global gatherings throughout the world in terms of the 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence, to try to get people to accept our interdependence and the inalienable rights. And I want these communities to come together with the different organizations that are within them. Like in Rockville here in Rotary, we have 17 different organizations that we contribute money to and work with. But I don't think those that deliver food work with each other. Those that do environmental projects probably don't work with each other. And I want to try to make July 4th a date annually that people can come together in their organizations, find out what the community wants and needs, and then go for it in a holistic fashion, if that makes sense. And,
So if I can summarize, what you're looking at is how do you build that community agreement? Well, how would you put it in a sentence?
yeah, well, I'm a grassroots organizer, and I've done this stuff lots of times around particular issues. So I'm very clear that a database is needed, but some kind of a meeting in advance of the date to
Okay.
bring these groups together to kind of look at the problems that we're facing here in the United States, but all over the world, really,
Okay.
in terms of what's needed most in a community. And then having that community decide how they want to work together in achieving whatever the community comes up with. It's its highest priority.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So
Okay.
the ultimate goal is really to create political will eventually to fund the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. And I know that's a shot, tilting at windmills, but it's something that needs to happen. And it's I don't see other organizations doing much like this except Charter for Compassion, and I Am Humanity is another group. But to bring them all together so that they're working holistically in a community is really the goal that I'm shooting for, and I don't have much experience at that.
Right. Gotcha. Thank you. And welcome, Joseph. And what we're doing is going around the room and sharing just very briefly, what are you hoping you come away with, that you take with you by the end of our time together, so that we make sure that what we talk about gets talked about. So, and we put in the chat the list, and we'll add you at the end, Joseph. So next up is Joanne.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Chuck, where are you from?
I'm in Rockville, Maryland right now. Originally, I'm from all over, but Rockville, Maryland, just north of the blast zone, Washington, D.C.
Okay, all right, thank you. I'm Joanne Gaines from Compassionate California. So it was just by chance that I was available today, and always supportive of Laura and Susan and all the wonderful work that's been done in Sacramento. So I'm here to support and just continue to be aware of the discussions. Been working with Regina on potential new project or re-energizing project in Pasadena. And so always interested to, hear more and be able to apply it to the work that we're doing. So thank you, ladies.
Regina.
Well, hello, everybody. Sorry, I didn't realize that my initials come out rather than my name. As Joanne said, we're investigating the possibility of revitalizing the Compassionate Pasadena program. I am involved with Compassionate Pomona and know Marilyn through that. I'll work off of Chuck's comment. If he's a 2 or a 3, I think I'm like a 0.5. So all of this is super new to me. And even though I've been involved with Rotary International for over 25 years, um, and I do see some synergies between the two philosophies, um, this whole compassionate movement has intrigued me personally, and something that I would like to bring to life in Pasadena, largely through my association with the Pasadena New Thought Center, because I feel that there's an opportunity for the center to really step up to the community. With regards to, yes, I did read the documents that were provided, and in a positive note, they were overwhelming. It is such a difference of approach between what I have experienced with Compassionate Pomona. So my involvement on this call today is to really better understand um, maybe the basics, because the ambassador program is, I'm assuming, so very advanced based on, what you were doing in Sacramento. How we could get Pasadena off on a good foot.
Got you. Thank you. Thank you, Regina. Nancy. And welcome, Sakala. And what we're doing is going around the room and just sharing a couple sentences about what is it that you would like to leave with, what type of insight or information or direction you'd like to leave with, so that all that happens today. So Nancy, you're on.
Thank you so much. And I also really appreciate all the beautiful work that you've put into creating this so that it could be used as a model for other situations. One of the things I found especially helpful were the visual aids that were a part of the toolkit, because me being able to see the spokes, that helped me learn a little bit more, and it also helped me form some questions that keep resurfacing. So I currently serve as the liaison with Compassionate St. Augustine, which is where I live, and the Charter for Compassion. And in practice, because I find myself moving around quite a bit, I want to be able to effectively be a compassionate ambassador at large in whatever community I am sitting with, to be able to hear what they're saying and offer them systems of support that could allow them to thrive in ways they might not have yet been able to. And as a part of that, one of the things that I've been seeing, and I've been studying compassion for about 4 years now, and every time I learn something new, I learn how little I know. So it's exciting to get to be a part of this movement where we're continuing to learn really, I think, helpful ways of being, and more and better, discovering more and better tools for practicing our trade, if you will. So one of the big issues that comes up to me in this module and in other work with the charter is the communication and its inherent challenges in today's world. And particularly when we break into things like sectors or pillars, or in your model where we have the compassionate ambassadors serving one unique portion of the population. So I guess I'm looking for tools to make sure that those pillars, sectors, or independent ambassadors communicate with one another and provide opportunities. So not duplicating efforts, enhancing the experience of everyone by virtue of what they're learning, discovering, and growing into, and thinking about the transferability of the model. Your model has different, I can't remember the term for it, but in St. Louis, where I grew up, they were called aldermanic zones. So there's a commissioner or an appointed or elected
district. Thank you.
District. Thank you. So in St. Augustine, that's not the model. The 5 city commissioners serve the city. And so there are definitely disparate pieces of the city, Lincolnville, Uptown, West Augustine, things like that. But it wouldn't work the way you demonstrate it because no one particular commissioner is working with one particular district. So anyway, I'm trying to envision how we can implement that. And then that also helped me recall that it's very different in St. Louis. And I know that the city systems vary from one community to another. So how to use the foundational tools and adapt them so that they're effectively transferred to ensure that communication, so that people aren't, 2 segments of the community aren't having a blood drive on the same day or something like that. That's just, just so that we can maximize the benefit of what's going forward. And then one other thing is that this summer I get to present a strategic plan proposal to Compassionate St. Augustine. And I'd like to use the tools that you've provided to help guide them toward an effective means. And I want to make sure that, first of all, that's okay. And then what, if any, permissions do I need to use your materials to do that?
Yeah. Thank you, Nancy.
Thank you.
I think we've got some good responses to some of your
Great
questions.
Thanks.
And welcome, Melinda, our sister presenter here with Susan and I. And Melinda, what we're doing is going around the room and just learning from each person, what is it that they hope to walk away from or to leave with from today, so we make sure that we create a space for all that to happen. And let's see, let me go, let's see, we have Chuck, Joanne, Regina, Nancy, Joseph. Is it Wachira? Is that your first name, was Wachira?
Yes, that's my first name.
Okay, so Joseph is your first name.
Mhm. It
Okay, well,
sounds like Washira is his first name. I'm not sure.
well, you're on if you'd like to share what brings you here today and what are you hoping to leave with, so that we make sure it's included.
Well, I'm here to learn. Okay, I'm Joseph from Kenya. And basically, I'm here to learn and to share insights on how we can build a global compassion so that at least we can move the world to the next level. Yeah, by being part of the community that inspires others, by, of course, being guided by the principles of this global movement. So basically, I'm here to learn and to exchange knowledge and ideas with you guys. So thank you.
Thank you. And Sakala, welcome. I know you've been trying to land here. It looks like we've got you, at least for a little bit. My name is Laura Hansen. I'm here with co-presenters Melinda Washington and Susan Ruppel, along with our host Marilyn Turkovich, Charter for Compassion. And we're going around the room, sharing what it is that what each of you would like to leave with today, what information or insight or instruction. And everyone else has shared, and so you're next if that's something you wish to do. And you can either unmute your mic and share, or you can type it in the chat.
So Carla, can you hear us? And just let us know. I guess if you can't hear us, then you won't be able to let us know in the chat. If you can, she dropped off again.
I think they have clearly a very difficult connection.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, it's been
yeah.
at least 5-6 times already.
Yeah, so I think we'll move through. So we won't necessarily go in order because I think there are some themes here. So Susan, listening to what everyone had to share, is there something that you'd like to kind of provide on some of the themes you've been listening to?
Yes, there is actually just a few quick things I want to point out in the documents, particularly the guide, the Compassion Ambassador guide. And I think this addresses some of the things that have come up already, the questions or things people want to walk away with. There's a great visual diagram on page 9 that talks about stakeholders and also the obstacles and the problems, as well as the vision of areas of the community to address. So that's a great visual. Also, the one of the things I saw recently is that one of the primary causes of job stress, including volunteer stress, is not having clear role and responsibilities. So if you've looked through the documents, you'll see that we spent quite a bit of time identifying for our region, at least, what the roles and responsibilities are. And in particular for the Compassion Ambassador, starting on page 10, when Laura and I were documenting things, and we first went through and said, okay, what are the roles and responsibilities of the Compassion Ambassadors in our program? And then just as importantly, we said, well, what are not their responsibilities? So I think it's going to be easier once you define those areas, what your Compassion Ambassadors' responsibilities are and what they're not. And that's going to help you, I believe, more easily bring on volunteers to be Compassion Ambassadors. And part of that is the right people in the right roles. And so since I have a lot of IT project management background, it's important to have admin and or project management people to help support the Compassion Ambassadors, because Compassion Ambassadors have a very unique skill set of bringing the community together. And when they're supported with the day-to-day organizing tasks and tracking and such, then they can really fulfill their unique genius and their passion. So the right people in the right roles is also very important. So those were some of the tips and areas of the documents that I wanted to point out today.
Thank you. One of the other themes, I think it might have been more to what you talked about, Nancy. We use districts because that was how our city was set up. If our city wasn't set up that way, we might divide them by region or neighborhood. So what are the natural communities within your region? And that's really the thing. And I see your hand, Nancy. I'm going to share one more thing. I don't remember what page this is on, or if it's in there. Susan, you might remind me, but we've written so much, I'm just not sure what's in it. However, what I will say is we met regularly as ambassadors to share what is it we're doing in each of our districts. That's critical. The built out model is that each ambassador would have a community team for that region, and they would meet monthly on what all the team members are doing, and then kind of bubble up what the issues were. And then the compassion ambassador would then talk to the elected official for that region, for that district, or whatever your jurisdiction is, or it might be assigned. If it's 5 members to an entire municipality, then you would maybe do a simple assignment of this compassion ambassador is, to this elected official. But critically important to have regular check-ins, really operational on what's going on, so that we can keep things moving with the elected officials representing the communities, and our leaders in the nonprofit and social justice and grassroots leadership space. Nancy.
That's really helpful. Thank you. Because now I can see that happening with in perpetuity. Actually, there's a compassionate ambassador who's attached to each of the city commissioners in the St. Augustine model, and then that would be conceivable to do that in other models in a similar fashion. What I'm seeing as a challenge, and in part this is based on what Susan shared with us, that is recruiting that number of people, because one of the other things that when I do this work, what I really want to see is that this model is sustainable. So when I'm not doing the work anymore, who's going to start doing it? And when these compassionate ambassadors who are going to be serving in these roles are ready to transition, what's the model we have? And Marilyn, that's incorporated into one of the core what are we calling those systems to address it in the Charter for Compassion, and it certainly has the same level of importance, I think, in all of our community work as well, to not lose institutional memory,
Right.
and to be able to provide that that framework that allows, even when people are changing, there's a consistent path, so people don't have to reinvent a wheel, or can add another spoke to the wheel if the wheel would be more effective with another spoke, something along those lines.
Yeah.
Thank you. So I guess recruiting is my core question there. Is there a part that we had already that I missed in terms of identifying those people, the project managers, and inviting them to come into conversation around project managers and other roles, obviously?
Where we found those folks in at least 2 places. One was in our regular community meetings that we organized to talk about what is a compassionate community, and how are we already embodying a compassionate community, where aren't we? And so oftentimes someone will come forward and say, I'd like to help, and these are my skills. Another thing is we identify what skills we need, and we approach folks that might not even be thinking about it, but they're involved in an aligned nonprofit as a volunteer, or they work for a company that has a good social corporate responsibility statement. So we then can invite people to participate. So the idea is you're continually weaving the community in to the work by validating how they're doing it already. You know, how are they validating that in their way they're already being a compassion ambassador, and to come in and have that be kind of reinforced, acknowledged. So it's both. You might find them coming in, and you might reach out. And let's see. General support. I'd like to touch on briefly. If you're in California, then Compassionate California is an amazing resource and team. And then nationally, the individualized coaching in building your compassionate community team that the Charter for Compassion is offering is, priceless. Let's see, Regina, about restarting Compassionate Pasadena. I believe it can be done because we're humans and we want to, well, some of us would like to live in a world that works for everyone. Have you already done the debrief on what didn't work and what kind of fires are still burning?
So Laura, we are just at a super infancy stage. I mean, Joanne and I, and Joanne, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's basically you and I in a dialogue trying to sort out in a maybe subtle way who the connections are that we need to reconnect with. Am I correct on that, Joanne?
Yeah. Well, we have connections with pretty much the people who were involved before. It was very much arts oriented. But
Right.
we do have all those names. We do have others. Sylvia, I don't know if you remember, Sylvia Holmes is the daughter of the longest serving mayor in Pasadena. And she lives apparently right next door to the head of the Human Relations Commission. So they are now on board and should be meeting, I think, for the first time, maybe next week, to share with the full commission, their interest. So anyway, yeah, we're pulling together all of the names and organizations and stepping forwards, slowly.
Okay. I'm remembering the storyline now for Pasadena. If you haven't done this already, and Melinda or Susan might have suggestions as well, is start with the end in mind. So what is it that you're envisioning?
Absolutely.
Like for Sacramento, what we envisioned is a better partnership and progress between elected officials and the communities they serve, and to start to fill some of those cracks, and to acknowledge all the work that is being done to create kind of a zeitgeist feeling that we live in a compassionate community. That was the end goal. So we designed and built for that. So what is the end goal? Because that's the story you're going to tell, and that will help define who you want to tell that story to because of their aligned interest.
Yeah. Also remember, they're part of the Dinas, Altadena, Pasadena, and all the fires, recently. So there's that aspect to it, I'm sure, building resilience and
Yeah, and I unconsciously use fire metaphorically when it's really literal as
yeah,
well.
literally.
Sorry, Regina.
Part of what we were able to do as well as Laura mentioned earlier is organizations that were doing similar things, introduce them to each other, or organizations that were doing different things that had a synergy between them, introduce them to each other. And in doing that and getting more familiar with the community, we also saw where some of the gaps were.
Mhm.
So that's being that connector of organizations doing good things in the community is also an important role.
And if I can, I think I read it in one of the documents, because my background is in marketing, is this need to survey the community and see what they want versus coming in with an idea of this is what we can do. So I don't know if any of you have ever done some type of, for lack of better terminology, survey monkey or something that is so simple to use to survey your local community.
I think that's a great idea if you can, and I think it would be successful if you connect with community organizations who may have already done that
Mm.
for their own membership or their own constituency, so that you can aggregate that feedback and or work with those community organizations to ask them to survey their communities for the answers. That way you'll get a better response rate than if you just sent it out, who knows how. But always, and then especially if you get organizations that are aligned to creating, a healthier, safer community, and invite them into something of a compassion alliance, and that this is something that they're participating in, then you get layers of value there. One, you find out if they've already identified what the issues are based upon, like if you met with like an interfaith, if there's an interfaith group, you can find out from them what are their issues that they've already determined, so that you can aggregate that. Marilyn.
Yeah, thank you, Laura. I was just thinking about your question, Regina, and reminded that one of the best ways to maybe approach eventually a survey is to get a motivating point together. And that might be just like, for example, I know in Pomona, one of the first times I went to Pomona, there was Thursday night, which was, safe night. And then the following day, there was this big reception on the city hall grounds, and there were all these organizations sharing different things. And so, if you could, pull together and get involved in a celebration that recognizes the good things that are happening in a community, and then the very next day after, while people are still like in that spirit of camaraderie, to send out a survey and just say, what's your vision of a compassionate community? And add those little questions that might be really pertinent. I'd also suggest that you look at the Muhammad Ali City Index and see how is it that they measured the 12 cities that they chose, who they thought were compassionate and why they were compassionate, and maybe borrow some of those questions that were asked during that part. And then the third thing I'm reminded of is Magdalena Woolery, who, when she started getting people involved with Compassionate Botswana, she got a council person that she convinced that compassion was the be all and end all, and they should become a compassionate country. And so she's, with his help, set up a little station outside the assembly hall in Gaborone in Botswana, and gave out compassion bracelets and got the juices flowing for compassion, and then moved ahead. And that's how that campaign got started. And I'm thinking of one last one, that the mayor of Rotterdam, when they were declaring themselves to be a compassionate city, I don't know who convinced him to do this, but he got involved in a flash dance performance at the Rotterdam train station. And so that kind of set the stage for that particular initiative. So, kind of a surprise attack getting into compassion.
Thank you, Merlin. The other thing we did is during our kind of all day compassion and action events in each of the districts, that was a community exercise of what is a compassionate community to you, what are the issues, what do you think we should focus on? So that's an engagement activity, and then you then determine how you want to follow up on that and work together on it.
And at those events, we had local musicians and other performers and local food from local vendors. And so we really brought in all aspects of the community at those events.
Mm-hmm. And we had youth, social justice leaders, and elected officials. Yeah. Does that give you, Regina, does that give you some food for thought?
Oh, yes, a lot of food for thought. The thing that comes to mind is I'm going to guesstimate with many of these activities, you had a team already in place, lack of better terminology, a steering committee, that enabled you to do some of these things.
We have the compassion ambassadors.
Right. So you had structure. Right.
Yeah, and yes, we had the compassion ambassadors first. We had us as a team. And then we defined, as Susan mentioned earlier, what are we doing and why are we doing it and how are we doing it? And so that it can be sustainable, as we all had full-time jobs and kids and stuff. And yes, so it starts with the team. Otherwise, you're fried to a crisp almost instantly, because what you're doing requires a team.
So Laura, maybe we
It's
could talk
meant
a
for a
little
team.
bit about how way back in the day, or maybe Nancy, how did you form your initial team to start putting this together?
Yeah, we worked with who we knew and trusted, who they were. Each of us was already doing the work in some way, and each person, and Melinda, you can speak to this from your point of view, we all wanted to have a greater impact. And so by working together with a structure and a goal, we could. And having the team is the beginning of the movement.
Mhm.
And having a story to tell about what it is that you're doing, that we can come together these. And I recommend eight to, like, 8 is the perfect number for the core team. And then you can build from there. But if you have 6, it's not stable enough. 7, not quite. 8, stable. And yeah, so those are my thoughts. There's more to say, but I wanted to share time with Melinda of her view on this.
Thank you, Laura. I was just thinking about how I came on board, and what was most important about that team building, developing that team that was invested, is understanding that they had some background and training around their own biases. Laura and I met at a healing racial trauma. I forgot the title of the event, but the conversation around racial tension and the conversation around supporting different subjects, supporting our unhoused community, is very contentious. And if I wasn't already doing the work and sat in community with my fellow compassionate ambassadors that were doing the work within themselves before we went out as a group, I don't know if it would have been as successful. So that's I think, key component when you're team building or bringing people together, that everybody has the same understanding of their biases as they come and hold space for others in the name of compassion. Especially when you're talking about, like, in Botswana, I'm sure there's some political unrest that if I don't know much about the politics there, so if I were to come in and say, hey, I want to offer this, I love people, I want to be compassionate, without having that background, it may be not the outcome that was envisioned. So I just wanted to add that there was some work around that. I remember, Laura, that you offered in the name of meditation through Divine Spark to get us all on the same page. And then we were able to come together and be more of a support to the community.
Yeah. Well, and I knew that you had to say what you had to say, Melinda. I'm not sure about Joseph's cultural background, but we're all white except for Melinda. And in order to do this work, you must recognize you're in the dominant culture and have all the advantage. You absolutely must. And how to be a collaborative, generous, space-sharing leader with your Black and Brown brothers and sisters who are in the social justice work, in the community building work, and they're living in the discrimination, and they're trying to raise the community above it. So the role that Susan and I played, I think we're the only 2 white people on the team, was opening doors that are only open to white people. It's just the way it is. So it was easier for us to open the doors to some of our elected officials, to the mayor, to some of the community organizations. We open the door, step aside, and then all the rest of us pile in, essentially. And that goes to what you were saying, Regina, of coming into a community and saying, here's the solution. Like, no. It's how do you use your position in as a white person in the dominant society how do you use that as a leverage to create change, or to take whatever step you need to take. It's just recognizing that, and then continuing to do the work. And it's helpful for me to remember that I'm a racist every day. every single day, every minute of every day. And owning that helps me recognize to a greater and greater degree what that looks like, how it comes out, so I can continue deconstructing my own indoctrination. So I can actually live in a more safe and equitable community. If I don't do that, I can't actually live over here. I can only live in something that's exclusionary and oppressive. But the compassionate community is a whole different model based on everyone sharing in leadership, that everything is equitable. And so that's a critical piece. So Regina, Nancy, Chuck, as you build your teams, really continue. If you're doing the work, keep at it. It's lifelong. You'll die a racist. Just know that. So you might not you'd be this much less racist, but you're still going to die racist. So the more humor you can have about that, and humility, and know that what you're doing is deconstructing an inequitable society within your own self. And you're doing this work to re-indoctrinate yourself in what's natural for us, which is, as a human race, to work together, to create something that serves everyone. That's our nature, in my view. So that's a piece of this in order to build a diverse team and not be shut down quickly by big chunks of your community, which can happen. I've watched it happen. And it's wonderful when it doesn't happen. So it seems like a tangent, but it's actually central.
And a couple of additional elements is, I'll point you again on the Compassion Ambassador Guide, the chart starting on page 10. It says, what are the roles and responsibilities of the Compassion Ambassador? And just as important, what's not? Because somebody mentioned earlier, we don't want to go into a community and have people feel like we're telling them what they need or what they should do. And so that chart's going to be valuable for that. Also on the question and the topic of, yeah, there we go. So, we're not there to fix anything or anyone, or, so as an example, and we're not invested in any particular solution. So that's, these are the elements that it's important that they know we're there to support them in what they desire and how they want to get there. We're not coming in to tell them what's wrong or what to do about it. Also, as far as the question about where do we get team members, how do we build our team, and this is in the guide as well. One of the aspects is to look at and to connect with businesses and corporations and organizations in your community that are up on corporate social responsibility, because often corporate social responsibility, there may be volunteers within their organization that want to be part of that corporate social responsibility, but they're not sure where to go or what to do or what kind of organization they could fit into. So when you make those connections with those businesses that are cognizant of that and practicing it, then they can provide you with volunteers that could, for example, help with project management or administration, or being a scribe, or helping with the meetings or the gatherings. And so there's a lot of activities that could be that part of the team members could come from other organizations and not just from your compassionate organization exclusively.
And educational institutions in the full range of sectors. Yeah.
I'd like to address Chuck's question, because it is something that, as you develop your community, is very helpful to do, and that is have is build your coalitions or build your alliance, and to meet with them, and it might be a Zoom meeting, and so Chuck, you have Project 250. Do you already have a group of organizations that are interested in participating, and you're looking at having a meeting to help kind of be your steering committee? Is that the idea? Oh, you're on
Yes,
mute.
I do have a couple of organizations that are interested, and I've got about a dozen different organization groups that are already endorsing it, and I have websites to go onto it. Right now, Rotary is my primary angle. I'm going to their conference in June, and they've had me rewrite a book. There's a 1959 look at how to achieve peace, and I'm rewriting that, and it's got Project 10 all throughout it in terms of how to bring groups together to achieve positive peace that they're looking for. And yeah, my former life as chair of the United Nations Association Council of Organizations has me out of a database to die for in terms of global organizations. So I've got an enormous database, and I've got one person in Africa taking on all 54 countries. And I just met another one who was a wonderful speaker, who's going to be, yeah, no. So I'm connecting with people, but I'm not doing a very good job of training them to speak about Project 250. So that has to happen, and then also starting to link them together to work. Anyway, so I don't know if that answers your question, but it's crazy. I mean, we're talking about every organization that has a global perspective, trying to bring them together. You know, my former role as chair of the UNA Council of Organizations, there was a peace movement, the environmental movement, and the economic and social justice movement, and they would never come together. They would each compete with each other for money, for memberships, for media attention, for access to Congress, and you could not get them to work together. But now, with things happening by Trump blowing everything apart, there's more. They're looking for something. They're looking for something to pull them together. And Project 250 is around the Declaration of Independence, and with a simple phrase: take care of nature, take care of each other. You know, we know what to do, we just don't do it. Our culture is so divided by the concept we have in our head of separation and independence that we don't even meet our neighbors, let alone, you know, work together in other organizations. And so it's yeah, no, it's a windmill I'm going to tilt at until I die. But
So are you looking for a better, like, talking points, a better way to share for other people to share what Project 250 is?
yeah, well,
Just trying to hone in on what you're.
I was imported here to Washington, D.C. in '88 because of Results, which is a hunger project. They have what was called a laser talk, where you take a 2-minute issue and you develop it into talking points. And so I've got that wired, but it's hard to get other people to actually take that and use it. You know, I'm also a wrestling coach, and so I coach young people trying with techniques and movements, and it's hard to get people to change a mental perspective or to even see, you know, the steps in trying to educate somebody on a particular issue.
Okay.
Yeah.
How do you give them written talking points? What tools do you give them for that?
Yeah, I do. Well, what I've done mostly is give them quotes from people from every culture and perspective that verify this idea that we're all endowed by our Creator with certain inalienable rights, and there are certain truths. And I arm them with some talking points about truth that I get from Neil deGrasse Tyson, the idea that everybody has different truths, but there are objective truths. And what causes most problems is the truth decay that we have right now in our culture, and we use words that don't mean something. You know, compassion is very clear. That's a very clear word. The idea of peace, not so clear. The idea of democracy, not so clear. And so, yeah.
It sounds like you Are you trying to inspire or are you trying to operationalize and mobilize?
Both. I want to inspire people to overcome the concept that we're separate, that we're not.
Okay,
Yeah. And I've got great quotes for that I insist people memorize. We're all connected, interdependent, and vulnerable. We need a global approach. Pretty simple.
okay. And so what are you trying to mobilize people to do?
Well, the main thing, again, going back to what you earlier said about what's your final objective. My final objective is to create the political will to eventually finance the 17 Millennium Sustainable Development Goals by bringing businesses in, because they're the only ones with money. So connecting these nonprofit organizations that are working on all these different issues to begin to work more together to make their work less, creating, the new wheel to work together, but to generate the political will within their community, to lead around the political leaders, to like, oh, there's a lot of interest in this. Maybe I should listen to this, and then and get that, make that happen.
Okay, so there might be others of us on this line that have insight, but I would suggest, because that's an elephant.
Well, let me tell you what I've been doing with my own community.
Yeah, so you've got an elephant. So if you were to reverse engineer it and say, here's where we want to go, and then what do we need to do right? What is the first step right now that would take us to the second step and the third step, even though I know we're talking in a way abstractly, but people need inspiration wrapped around an action they can take. And so, and that they know that that action will create traction of some kind. So you need to, I would suggest taking this concept and this vision and what does it mean in the daily life? Like, how does that translate down into how people's lives change in their daily activities? And then, what does that look like? And somewhere in there, you then find, like the environmentalists do this pretty well. I think is it 350, Project 350? So, and then they break it down to, organic composting, don't drive your car, it just brings it down. So what, if you've taken it down to that level so that people can feel good about the actions they can.
Well, let me give you an experiment that I'm working on in my own community. I'm former PTSA president of Rockville High School. They have over 150 nations represented there. They're just across the street is a synagogue where there's probably a half a dozen nations represented there. Still across from that street, there's a Korean church. I want to bring them together this 4th of July in the daytime and have them come up with some kind of, I've got speaking to the leaders of those, have them do some kind of a project that will help people experience the interconnectedness, the interdependence, the internationality of our neighborhood. And to have them create some kind of an event that day. It could be food, it could be dance, it could be art, it could be anything that they want to do. And to look at just across the street from me, there's a line of hungry people every day, or not every, actually once a month. What's the biggest problem that they want to focus on? And survey that.
We partnered with the United Nations local chapter, and we did, I forget the name of it, but it was a potluck.
Mm-hmm.
And we partnered with the refugee and immigration placement organizations that help place refugees and help place immigrants into the community. And then we invited other nonprofit organizations, but our main partner was the UN chapter. And we had many cultures represented, and they brought the food from their culture, their home. different nationalities and cultures speak about their experience and what they hope for in the community. So it seems, yeah, and also sometimes you have to let go of the outcome in order for the steering committee that you bring together from these different churches and the high school, if I got that right, to say, what would, what can we do to work together and create an event that would really validate the connection that we have to each other and see what comes of that.
Yeah, I already did that with a watershed in our
Okay.
school. There's like 7 different aspects of this watershed, and there's organizations working on each little branch of it. And I wanted to bring them together to talk about really taking this watershed on as a whole. And,
Okay.
and that fell apart pretty quickly because of lack of people interest in it. But no, I'll just let it go. And so I have no problem with that, and move on to something that will work.
I wanted to welcome April Helen. Welcome, and my name is Laura Hansen. I'm here with Melinda Washington and Susan Rupel and Marilyn Turkovich, just talking through some of the questions we have from the first webinar on creating compassionate communities. And Nancy, I see your hand up, and then after you, Marilyn.
Thank you. Well, I had the great good fortune of working with a large, diverse international student population before I retired. And we had a real challenge with them getting engaged in anything outside of the classroom. So I invited them to tell me what barriers there were for them. And they said they didn't want to go to meetings. That was what they felt like. They were always being invited to meetings. They wanted to have a party. And so I just thought of that, about that, and how meaningful that experience was. It became an event that is still happening now. So it's in its 15th year. Well, they named it Multicultural Eve. They found representative leaders to help organize it. Everyone was invited to come in what they claimed as their cultural garb. Everyone was invited to bring a dish from their home culture and with a note about the ingredients, maybe the recipe, whatever they felt comfortable with. And then we also had what I think of as a talent show, but it was really an invitation to celebrate something from your home culture. And to me, that was the over the top remarkable element that they added to it, because we had a young man from South Korea who played a song on the flute and then told us that the words to the song were crying because of the brokenness of their country. We had a young man from Kabul, Afghanistan, who read a poem from Rumi in Farsi and then translated it for us. We had somebody make guacamole on the stage and then share that with us. We had students from India who performed a Bhangra for about 3 years. And in the 4th year, there were people from half a dozen different countries who could dance the Bhangra together. And it was really an incredible thing. And I'm imagining that it's still thriving like that. So something along those lines might be effective for you in your summer initiative. Just a thought. I got to witness how that could really bring a community together in new ways and very meaningful. And then they developed new friendships as a result of that engagement, of course.
Chuck, are we getting closer to what your question is or what you're trying to solve? You're on mute.
Yeah, that was a brilliant. I think dancing is one of the elements that I think that brings a lot of cultures together. And I know some Indian teacher now, so that's good. I guess what's going to happen, because of so many different communities are so different across the whole world, that I'm going to have a start with a real small 1, 2, 3, 4 step of kind of how to bring it to a community and make it very simple. So it doesn't get complicated. But I really love the idea of a party and bringing people together under joy and experience and sharing their culture. It really, no, that's great. That's what it's all going to be all about.
Okay, all right. Let's see.
I think Marilyn had her
Marilyn
hand
had
up.
her hand up.
She did, but she
I
doesn't.
did. No, I took it down, but yeah, I do have my hand,
Okay,
have my hand up.
all right.
And I think Chuck, Laura's saying that it's an elephant in the room. And I just want to relate a story of working with Paulo Freire, who wrote the book Pedagogy of the Oppressed. And the story is that I spent most of my life in Chicago, in communities and in education. And we had invited Paulo to come to Chicago for a conference. And he asked if we would bring together a small group, which we did, of about 35 people from various communities in the city. And he came in and he was introduced, and he didn't say anything. And everyone sat in this utter, like, uncomfortable state. And, people said, Paulo, what can you tell us? And he just went like this. He put his hands out and he kind of gestured to the group. And then we sat in silence. And we sat in silence. And we sat in silence for 45 minutes before somebody started to talk. And it took probably about maybe 2 hours before we forgot that he was there. And we started to create our own conversation. And we had lunch, we came back, we thought he might talk, he didn't talk, we continued our talking. And then the next day, he was scheduled to come back, he came back. And we thought, surely today he'll comment on what we were talking about yesterday. And he didn't. And then on the third day, he spoke. And, his whole thing was that a community has to come to a sense of consciousness, and that it is only through dialogue that this consciousness comes about. And that as you continue to dialogue and the consciousness comes forth, then you begin to think about liberation and what is it that you need in order to begin the process of transformation. And so I think that, if you have these multicultural, a church or a multicultural group of students or a Korean population, that coming and, maybe just posing one question and then, you taking your silent position, because I think that, I'm a Croatian American first generation. I feel comfort when I am with my own group of people. And I think that, if it's a Korean organization or Filipino or whatever it might be, there's a sense of comfort, there's a sense of conversation that you have that you don't share with other people. But it almost seems, Chuck, that I think that what you're trying to do is to bring all of, out of the goodness and the passion that you have for trying to unite people. It's such a huge thing. And so that, how the Korean population is going to get involved in a project that you think is really important, and how a group of, that has 120 students involved. I mean, it's so interesting, to think about 120 students in a school from different, groups, and the conversations that they've never had, and the conversations they want other people eventually to hear. And so when you say that you will be working in stages, I think that the anticipation, those stages will require a lot of time.
I agree. I do have a one-page simple 5 different questions about the Declaration of Independence and unalienable rights. What does the laws of nature and nature's God mean? You know, and just as a kind of an icebreaker for people to do that, and then they have options of what to say or open. You know, so it kind of a one sheet to bring people together on what's the purpose of this, and it's so anyway, yeah.
I probably would do what Laura would say, working backwards. You know, I would say the celebration of the Declaration of Independence is coming up. And what does that mean to you? What are the voids? What are the questions? What are all of the fears that you have? And then eventually lead them to the questions that you have for investigation. But I think for people to get a handle on their own questions is really essential.
And I love what you said, Marilyn, about we have to develop our own consciousness. The community does. We spent 2 years doing community meetings so that we could socialize the idea and have a group conversation around what does it mean to them, so that we could over time have a consciousness within the community of folks who've answered that question for themselves. It helped move everything forward, and that was probably the most important thing, is having those community meetings. Because I mean, if no one cared about it, we wouldn't do it. I mean, if we held 4 community meetings and no one came, we'd say, okay, Sacramento's they're not interested. That's fine. So I think, and that goes to what you mentioned, Regina, of that survey, like what is it that they want? What is it that the community wants? And not coming in with an idea or a prescription. And then once we got going, the compassion action events also was a community conversation. All of it was around, oh, thank you for finding that through line, Marilyn. It was all about conversation and connection and doing it from a shared frame of compassionate community. So that I see that working for you, Chuck. Yeah.
Thank you.
I also want to add that those of us, this whole group of wonderful people here today, are organizers of some sort. And, you know, we want to, whether it's events or communication or whatever. And I have to continually remind myself this as well, because I'm fairly analytical and logical, is how do we want people to feel? So it's not just what we want people, action we want them to take, but how do we want them to feel about what it is that we're offering? How do we want them to feel about compassion? What does a compassionate community not just look like, but what does it feel like? And that's part of what I think brings people together as well.
Melinda, do you have some thoughts on what we've been talking about so far?
No, I thought that everything that you all are talking about, I feel the same way. So I'm glad that this is candid and honest. I really like the idea of bringing the youth in, so that it can continue in different generations and then morph into whatever vision they have of what compassion looks like. Because I do feel, I think we had I think we had a diverse group of people, but I don't remember us having a lot of 20 something. So if you can fold in generations like in the 20s and 30s and even teenagers, I think that it'll I don't know, it has a better chance of lasting longer.
I think so. We're coming up on our kind of last segment here. what is it that you would like to talk about next? What is on your list that you'd still like some conversation around or some clarity? And I certainly think that that individualized kind of advisory or mentorship with Charter for Compassion that Marilyn mentioned is excellent. So what else is on your list for today? I'm looking through and I know we addressed everything, but that doesn't mean it was fully satisfied.
Laura, I have one other thing that I think I asked
Oh, Nancy.
when I had the opportunity, but I wanted to ask about, do I need to get your permission to use things from the booklet as I develop the proposal for our strategic plan going forward?
Well, thank you for that. I would, and we have gifted it to the Charter for Compassion. I would, if I were in your shoes, because it lends credibility, I would always cite the material that you're using. That's helpful because then they know that there is a larger movement, that there are others that have put thought into this. It lends credibility to you and what you're doing. So I would cite it, whatever chunk you use at the bottom, say courtesy of Charter for Compassion and Compassionate Sacramento.
Beautiful. Thank you so much.
Is that appropriate, Marilyn?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
You know, I just wanted to bring up something because, and I have not thought about it until today's conversation. And that is that there have been a number of studies done all the way back to, I think his name was Harvey Contrell in 1950, an urban anthropologist who went around asking groups of people, what are five most important things that would make you feel to be okay in the world. And, you know, I'm thinking about, you know, what we're living through now and how people, I can't tell you that what has happened with the Charter for Compassion since Donald Trump has come on the scene. I mean, our emails have doubled and tripled, and you know, participation has done the same thing. And you know what what Contrell came up with during that first survey, and I can't remember what all five of them were, but I mean, one was the importance of family. The other, I think the very first one was that I know when I wake up tomorrow what is going to be there. And we don't know that right now because of the dilemma in which we find ourselves. And the fear of families or friendships or whatever it might be. You know, and never was, you know, one of the wishes or the big concerns money in these five things. It was all about security. And you know how difficult the time is right now as we're working with projects like you, Chuck, or Regina, trying to start a new compassionate initiative, that I think that maybe many people are coming to the table because, you know, they are in fear, they're insecure, their livelihood is threatened. And so I just thought I'd share that. And it all came from this conversation today.
Thank you, Marilyn. Susan.
Thank you, Laura. Well, I wanted to add when Laura talked about credibility, is another aspect of that is particularly when you're looking to bring other people on board or to connect other people, the more organized you are, the more credibility you're going to have. So like if you're going to bring other people, want to bring other people in, maybe you have some kind of postcard or something that has the talking points on it, because people may hear what you're saying, you want to do what you're trying to do, but for them to be able to then turn around and articulate that to somebody else is a whole nother story, right?
Mhm.
So, so talking points, maybe you have a postcard that has talking points on one side, and then the other side could be opportunities to volunteer and have different volunteer roles or something. So get people not only be able to articulate your vision that hopefully becomes their vision as well, but also right in front of them, then they also have a way to, oh, I want to be involved in this, but I don't know what I can do. So then on the other side could have, volunteer positions. Another thing I wanted to point out in the Compassion Ambassador Guide is in section 7, we identify some potential measurable results. So it's important once you do get your program up and running is to look at what are the results you're looking for and how can you measure them and track them. So then that lends to the credibility as well, when you can say, look, we've gotten this far and here's the results we've gotten so far. So maybe that's a number of people or the number of organizations that you've brought on board. Maybe it's the number of constituents or people that you've reached. So really looking at how making things measurable, how can you measure them and track them and then share that as part of the credibility of what you're wanting to achieve.
And so with a part of that, Susan, it'd also be really important to have a baseline. So something when we're starting out.
Absolutely.
So that we can measure against what our foundation was, right?
Right.
Yeah, okay.
There's some examples of that in section 7 of the Compassion Ambassador Guide.
Thank you.
Because people want to know that we're making progress, right? If they're involved in whatever the vision is, when they can see that there's tangible progress happening. And it could be as simple as maybe in a neighborhood, maybe they have an intersection that has, problems, either cars wrecking or people, not being safe for pedestrians. And if you can show that the community came together, for example, to get a stop sign or a stoplight at that corner, and then there was that many fewer incidences of people either feeling unsafe or being unsafe or car accidents or whatever, it can be that simple, that specific, or it can be the big picture vision of, how many organizations have come on, how many volunteers have come on, things of that nature. So there's a bunch of examples in section 7.
Perfect. And those can also serve us in terms of potential funders.
Absolutely. And I'll thank you for reminding me, Nancy. I wanted to point out that we have the sponsorship guide is also online and available to you folks. And that's one of the things that anybody that's being a sponsor, they want that credibility. They want to know you're organized, what your vision and your mission is. They want to know that you have a program or activities happening that are moving you towards that mission and vision. They want to know those measurable results that you've gotten so far. So absolutely, there's a lot of good stuff in the sponsorship guide, including we have the diagram in the sponsorship guide that shows what's the benefit to an organization getting involved, for example, in a compassion organization. So so definitely that's another great visual in the sponsorship guide.
Kind of reflecting on our time together today, one is build the team before you do anything.
Yeah.
Build the team, and building the team helps build the movement. Like as soon as you ask one person, it begins to happen. Like building the team is the beginning. It creates the momentum. It brings it into the world. It's not like, well, I have to build the team, then we start. No, building the team is the start. It gets everything moving. And it also, in my experience, it gives you hope. It gives me hope. Go, oh, good, someone else wants to do this. Thank goodness. And so you're helping, you're reaching out and finding people who have the shared dream.
Mhm.
The shared dream. And then, as Susan mentioned, is be organized. Be organized. Document, have plans so that you can work freely and creatively within that structure. If you don't have structure, it's difficult to be creative because you're burdening yourself with not knowing how the thing is built. You're building the ship. So one is the team, and two is conversation is everything. It's also you're bringing the vision alive in those conversations. You're bringing it, you're manifesting it in the community when you have those, community meetings, however you have them. So these two things are, it's the seed and the soil and the water. It's the beginning. And yeah, I would say those are the three things that from our conversation are coming away as thematic that will help you get the traction you need. And what you know you must do first is that. And that's where you'll find out, oh, there is nobody who's interested. Good to know. Nobody cares. All right, Susan.
And what Laura mentioned earlier on today is that we had monthly meetings where we brought the compassion ambassadors themselves together every month. And so part of what that did is it helped evolve the whole complexion of the Compassion Ambassador program, because they were each coming to those meetings with what's happening in my district. What are we doing? What's the community doing there? What are their goals and their issues? And so that collaborative element, even though they were serving different districts, was of critical nature of evolving the program and helping each other with ideas and connections and vision. So
Yeah. Laura, you're talking and your mic is.
I found that I've said, well, maybe you find out that no one cares. I've not found that to be true anywhere.
Mhm.
There's so many people that care. And you will have what you may have, what will probably be the nut to crack is you'll have people who are interested, but you've got to find your anchor people who will be your team, your core team. Yeah, Marilyn.
Yeah, I was just going back to Chuck's quest here, and it's a little bit different than trying to create a compassionate community, but nonetheless, it's really trying to initiate bringing people together. And I'm just going to offer Chuck, and you will obviously have time to think this through, but what would happen if you invited a trusted person from each of the groups in your community, the Korean church, the synagogue, the high school, and what have you, and just brought them together and simply said, this is a project that I have a passion for, and I'm wondering if you do as well. And just having, them contribute and then say, if you do have this passion, what might be your interests, what might be the next steps that you envision. It might be a starting point.
That is the starting point I'm on right now, and yeah, I've got the invitations out, so I just need to get them together at one point. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, because that'll build your team.
The other thing for me would be on the larger scale is to bring I Am Humanity and the Charter for Compassion and Rotary and maybe Return Peace Corps volunteers into one meeting
Yeah.
and have them look at the same thing. And there's
Yeah.
probably another dozen organizations that could be involved in that, because what Trump is doing is going the opposite way of the Declaration of Independence, and that's the direction we need to be heading.
I think that in a higher level, that might be called a think tank of bringing people together.
An action tank, yes.
So how are we feeling with where we're at right now? Do you have what you need to move forward?
Mhm.
Chuck, Regina, Nancy? Yes, Nancy.
One other question just resurfaced for me that I've been thinking about for a while. And that is related to who's missing. Because that's an important question to be able to answer. And I'm thinking about, as we invite people in to surface the members who will be actively engaged in the next steps. Do you know of a tool? Like we have, I don't know, about 2,000 people in our database, but there's 15,000 people in the city. So do you know of a source for reaching the broadest community membership to invite them in to the initial conversation, you know, and to then find out who's ready? And
You mean a mass email invitation?
mm-hmm.
Well, you could set up an Eventbrite so that it's, so you create open houses or community conversations as a way to expand your mailing list and reach people that maybe, reach other people. Also, what we did is we leveraged the mailing list of our alliance, which we had 70 organizations.
Mm.
And so we would ask them to send out an email to their membership to reach the greatest number. Yeah, those are I mean, if anyone else has other thoughts, please share.
Because I'm really thinking that there are a lot of people who aren't involved in anything right now, who might potentially be interested in getting involved. And when you say an Eventbrite, well, you have to have people's email addresses to extend the invitation to them, don't you? Or no?
No, it's an event platform. So someone just goes on and looks for things in their region or looks for things based on topic and to see if it's virtual or in person.
Mm-hmm.
See if they can attend.
Mm. Okay.
So I would use a variety of methods.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
You know, and Nancy, you have a mayor who's really quite open to compassion. So, conversation with her might be, geez, what do you think? Should we have a St. Augustine celebration and invite the whole community? Do you have a convention center?
We don't have a convention center.
Well,
no.
Just in case you had 15,000 people.
I like your optimism.
Yeah.
We have the Fort Grounds. That's the biggest gathering place that we have, but it's a little hard to speak to the masses from there. But I like the idea of using Nancy, especially as she's finishing her term. That's a good resource, and she might even be willing.
It's a good time to get mayors when they're finishing. They're willing to take all
Mm-hmm. Thank you. That's really helpful. Thanks a lot, everybody who can.
And the mayor's communications director may have some ideas as well
Hmm.
of how to get the word out.
Yeah, usually they want it to be it depends on the community, but usually a city government will want the event to be city sponsored.
Yeah.
That's the only way they'll support it. Or get the word out about it. But every municipality is different. So I would still go for it and see what's possible. For sure. Oh, did we do it?
I think so.
You did it.
Fabulous job.
Thank you for being here with us. Yeah, the more we can share anything that we know, the better.
And I would like to thank all of you ladies for the work you've done. I mean, coming into this new, Marilyn and Joanne know I'm pretty much a clean slate here. And you have given me wonderful tools and perspective to, I think, Joanne and I to start to get something going in Pasadena again. So
Great.
thank you.
Good, I hope so.
Very nice.
Well, thank you, Marilyn, for creating for Charter for Compassion, creating the platform for this.
And thank you for all of the work and the guidebooks. They're fantastic.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I hope they serve many people and keep things going, keep it moving.
And Regina, I don't know if you saw the message. Chuck wants your email address.
Oh, I didn't see it, but I got his, so I can send him an email and he'll have mine. I can put it here in the chat.
Good. It's always nice to have hot hookups during our meetings.
And Regina is always interested in Rotary and youth, and it's always nice to have some things consistently brought forward. Just a little FYI as we close, apologies to the charter for not participating in the mid-May events, but we here, including Pomona, are going to be in the LA County Fair with a big summit, and I think 4 or 5 days at the fair full time. So Regina, I'll talk to you about that. So we're looking to get some youth to dress up and get some excitement going.
Great.
Very nice. Well, thank you to all you wonderful people and the great work that you're doing in your communities. And it's very heartwarming and gives me even more hope.
Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Take good care.
Yeah, thank you, and take good care.